In the quiet of the night sky, an Aurora Air first-class flight became the stage for an unexpected tragedy. Two black twins, just 8 years old, sat obediently in seats 2A and 2B, praised by passengers as the cutest little passengers throughout the flight. But just a few minutes later, a slap rang out, tearing apart the polite atmosphere of the first-class cabin. An angry white woman, screaming about the Hermes bag, then slapped the little girl across the face before anyone could intervene. The red cheeks of the child, the stunned look in the older brother's eyes, and the phones that started recording the truth. No one, not even the woman, knew that the mother of the two children was the CEO of Aurora Air, who was on her way there. What happens when justice doesn't need to shout, but only steps forward in silence? Like, share, and subscribe to my channel to follow the story where true justice takes flight in a sky full of prejudice. The night sky over the ocean was strangely quiet. The soft yellow light cast a luxurious, velvet-enclosed atmosphere on the first-class cabin of Aurora Air Flight 982. The steady hum of the engines, the clink of crystal glasses, and the sound of someone flipping through a travel magazine. Seats 2A and 2B, where the two black twins sat side by side, were a rare haven of peace. 8-year-old Luna Carter was reading Charlotte's Web, while her twin brother, Leo, was engrossed in a small model airplane the flight attendant had just given him. Everything was peaceful, until Madeline Pierce emerged from the aisle between the cabins. She was in her 40s, with perfect blonde hair, a white linen dress, an apricot Hermes bag hanging from her arm, something she spoke of with more pride than her own name. Madeline winced slightly when she saw the two children sitting in first class, as if something were wrong with the order of the world. She walked past them, a trail of Chanel No. 5 perfume behind her, and raised her voice loud enough for 3 rows of seats to hear kids in first class. It's strange that Aurora Air doesn't maintain the same standards as before. A few passengers glanced at her. Luna looked down, pretending not to hear. Leo held the model plane tightly, choking back something in his throat. He had heard his mother say, "Never respond to arrogance. A man of true worth does not need to prove himself." Time passed. The plane steadied. The flight attendants served wine, apple juice, and warm towels. Leo casually leaned over to retrieve the fallen tablet, his arm brushing against Madeline's elbow. A small, inconsequential contact that no one noticed except her. "Get away from me," Madeline hissed, her eyes blazing. "Didn't your mother teach you to keep your distance?" The whole first-class cabin stopped. The boy only had time to stammer, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to." But she had already turned away, disdainful. Gloria Bennett, a veteran flight attendant, approached, her voice gentle. "Madam, if you are uncomfortable, we can arrange another place." "No need. They should move themselves." The air was thick. A man in row 3 frowned. Another white woman sighed, but no one intervened. On expensive flights, silence was the unwritten rule until it was broken. As the plane shook slightly from turbulence, Leo carefully held his sister's glass of apple juice. A small drop splashed onto the edge of the table, not touching the Hermes bag beside it, but Madeline, as if waiting for an opportunity, tugged at his hand. "Enough. You ruined my wallet. $15,000. Understand?" Her voice was harsh, tearing through the false elegance. Luna stood up, brushing her hand away. "She didn't do anything. Please don't hold my brother's hand like that." And then slap. The slap echoed as clearly as thunder in a clear sky. No one could believe their eyes. A grown woman had just slapped an 8-year-old right in the middle of first class. A red handprint was imprinted on Luna's cheek. She didn't cry. She just stared, her eyes watery but silent. Leo hugged her, trembling. "It's okay. The passengers started to react. One took out his phone and started recording. Another woman jumped up and shouted, "Are you crazy? She's just a child." "Flight attendant." Ethan Brooks rushed over, his voice stern. "Mrs. Pierce, please calm down. Your actions may constitute assault." "I acted in self-defense," Madeline cried. "They vandalized my property. No one heard what she said anymore." The entire first-class cabin was engulfed in silent indignation. A man in row 1 whispered, "Children having to suffer like this. What a shame for us." Gloria knelt down beside Luna, placing a cold water bottle on her cheek. "It's okay. Honey, I'm here." She just nodded, her eyes still fixed on the window where the night sky passed by, endless and cold. Madeline began to feel the eyes on her from all sides. She crossed her arms, trying to regain her authority air. "I will sue this company. I will talk to the top executive of Aurora Air. Do you know who I am?" Gloria didn't reply. She just squeezed Luna's shoulder, exhaling slowly. Perhaps justice was coming in silence. No one, including Madeline, knew that the mother of these 2 children was Naomi Carter, CEO of Aurora Air, who had just left Denver a few hours ago. In the clouds below, a woman was watching the flight report on her screen. Little did she know that, in just a few hours, she would become the calmest storm in the history of the airline. When the fasten seatbelt light came on, no one in first class remembered they were flying at 35,000 feet. They only felt the weight of a slap, not just to the child, but to the entire civilized world. And elsewhere, Naomi Carter was preparing to board the most urgent flight of her life, not to retaliate, but to show the world that justice can be silent and still resound. The air in first class felt as if all the oxygen had been sucked out of it. Madeline sat up straight, her lips pursed, her eyes searching for sympathy from the faces watching her. But there was no response. There was only silence. The heavy silence of people who had just witnessed something unacceptable. Ethan Brooks, the male flight attendant, approached. He kept his voice professional, though his eyes flashed with barely concealed anger. "Ma'am, we'll have to make a report. Your actions." "My actions were self-defense," Madeline interrupted, her voice higher than necessary. "The girl attacked me. I have the right to defend myself and my property." She held up the Hermes bag as proof. The whole cabin turned to look at it, expensive, unstained, as intact as the honor she clung to. A male passenger in row 3 chuckled dryly. Defending yourself by slapping an 8-year-old Madeline turned around, glaring. "You don't know anything. Those kids touched my bag, maybe took something. I can't believe this airline lets kids wander around in first class." A middle-aged woman sitting in the next row spoke up. Her voice was soft, but powerful enough to cut through the tense atmosphere. "I was sitting right here. Mrs. Pierce. I saw it clearly." She only touched the bag when she tried to pick up her brother's apple juice. There was no stealing. Madeline paused. For a moment. Then she raised her head and smirked. "Of course you would. I know you're kind. Always trying to act moral." The word you made several people in the cabin look up at once. A small but distinct wave of indignation spread through the rows. Ethan took a deep breath, his hand gripping the trembling pen. He leaned forward and spoke slowly. "Ma'am, if you don't cooperate, we'll have to notify the captain and security to be on standby upon landing." Madeline laughed, a dry, sharp laugh that rang through the air. "Security. I know the operator of this airline. I will call my lawyer immediately, and then I will talk to the highest executive of Aurora Air. Trust me, you will lose your job before the plane even touches the ground." Ethan didn't reply. He just bowed his head, writing each sentence down in his notebook, as per procedure. But something in his eyes had changed. It was no longer the restraint of an employee, but the gaze of a witness. In the back row, veteran flight attendant Gloria Bennett was comforting Luna and Leo. She was quiet, her face still red but not crying. Leo sat next to her, clutching the model airplane, the only gift he could think of that could protect him and his sister. A male passenger, Adrian Park, a Korean businessman, said softly, "She is so strong. I have 2 daughters. If someone did that to them, I don't know if I could stay calm like this." Gloria smiled slightly and replied in a tired voice, "She learned that from her mother." The statement made a few people turn around to look. No one knew who the mother of the 2 children was, but the way Gloria spoke made them feel that there was something deeper. Madeline continued to monologue, as if she spoke loudly enough, the truth would bend to her will. "This is why I hate flying commercial. Aurora Air used to be better. Now, they let anyone sit in first class. Even—" She left the sentence unfinished, but everyone knew what she meant. Even black people. No one said it, but the looks from the passengers spoke the accusation. A silver-haired man in the front row gently put down his wineglass and said in a calm but firm voice, "Mrs. Pierce, I have worked in the airline industry for over 30 years. I have never seen a passenger behave so badly. I think you should apologize to the 2 children. Excuse me, I'm not apologizing to anyone. I'm the one who's been offended here." Madeline almost screamed. The small door leading to the cockpit opened. Captain Samuel Porter, his face stern, stepped out. "What is going on here?" Ethan gave a brief report. After listening, Captain Porter looked straight at Madeline, his eyes calm and cold. "Ma'am, we will notify security to meet you at the gate upon landing. This flight does not tolerate violence, regardless of class." Madeline turned pale, and her voice faltered. You can't do this to me. I'll have all of you fired. I'll talk to the top executives of this company. I know them. I'll sue you all." The words rang out, hollow and desperate. Ethan just looked at her, his eyes filled with pity. "Yes, ma'am. When we land, you will meet the top executive of Aurora Air." The words brought a hush to the cabin. Someone sucked in a breath, as if sensing something was about to happen. Madeline still didn't understand. She still believed she was in control, and somewhere else, thousands of miles away. Naomi Carter was signing the emergency flight order. Her eyes were cold as steel, her voice calm. "Prepare for San Vicente. I want to meet passenger Madeline Pierce as soon as I land." The sky outside was still dark, but somewhere on the horizon, there was the light of a coming storm, not a storm of anger, but of justice. In the middle of the night, as the plane hurtled forward like an arrow, no one knew that on the ground, a mother was taking off to restore honor for her 2 children. And Madeline Pierce, in her blind confidence, still believed that power lay in threats. But she did not know that real power was very close, bearing the name Carter. The 2-story wooden house in suburban Connecticut was still bathed in pale dawn light. Dew covered the rose garden on the front porch, the petals still dewy. In the kitchen, Naomi Carter, a tall, composed 38-year-old, stood at the coffee bar. The drip of the coffee maker mingled with the laughter of two children running around the dining table. Luna was trying to tie her shoelaces, and Leo held up a silver bird-shaped plastic badge. Beaming Mom! Can I wear this badge on my jacket? Naomi smiled, her eyes filled with pride and worry. She wiped her hands, bent down and pinned the badge with the words Future Captain, Aurora Air, on her son's chest. Of course, my little captain. Luna pouted. I want a badge too. You already have it. Remember, Naomi smiled, taking another shiny badge out of her coat pocket. Mom just kept it for me. She bent down and pinned the badge to her daughter's jacket. Then she paused, staring at her little face, her eyes big, bright, and clear as lake water. There was something about that moment that made Naomi's heart clench. You remember I have to go to Denver today, right? Both nodded, eyes slightly lowered. Luna spoke in a small voice. But you said you would go with me this time. Naomi breathed softly, stroking her child's hair. I know. But there's an emergency at the control center. A flight is delayed because of the radar system, and I need to be there. Leo looked up and asked, Do you have to fix the problem so people can fly safely? That's right, and that's why I do this job. She put her hands on her two children's shoulders, her voice slow and steady. When you fly in the sky, remember every Aurora is part of this family. They will take care of you, just like I am there. Luna looked at her mother and asked softly, So what if someone doesn't like us? The question made Naomi pause. She looked straight into her daughter's eyes, her own eyes as a child, knowing what it was like to be judged by the color of her skin. Just remember, dignity is something no one can take away. When others put you down, don't bow your head. Just stand still. The truth will stand with you. Luna nodded, while Leo tightened his grip on the model plane. Naomi watched the scene, a small smile appearing on her face. Breakfast passed in small talk about the neighbor's cat, about the upcoming birthday party, and about Leo's lack of interest in oatmeal. But Naomi felt a nagging worry that strange premonition mothers have. She drove the two children to Harborview International Airport. On the way, the sky began to open, the early morning sunlight shining on the road wet from the rain last night. The car played What a Wonderful World, the song Naomi always played when sending her two children off somewhere far away. When the car stopped at the first-class departure area, Gloria Bennett, a veteran flight attendant whom Naomi trusted, was already waiting. She bent down to hug the two children and whispered, I'll take care of you two, like always. Don't worry. Naomi. Naomi nodded slightly, then bent down and said to her two children, Remember what I said. Okay, everyone on the flight is part of Aurora. Act like Aurora. Luna nodded, and Leo raised his hand in a little pilot salute. Naomi laughed and hugged them both. I love you, kids. And when the plane lands, I'll call you. As the two children walked through the security check, Naomi stood still, watching them until they were out of sight. She got back in the car, but didn't drive right away. She just sat there, quietly, her eyes on the sky. A steel bird took off, the sound of its engine echoing in the distance, and Naomi whispered as if to herself, Hold on, my two little angels. The phone rang, pulling her back to reality. It was Olivia Grant, her assistant, telling her about the incident in Denver. Naomi started the car, heading to Midland Gateway Airport, what she thought was a routine business trip, but which turned out to be the prelude to the biggest storm of her life. Little did she know that at the same moment, Aurora Air Flight 982 was preparing to taxi down the runway, carrying the two children she had just told to stand still while the world loses its calm. In the sky, Flight 982 lifted off smoothly, cutting through the white clouds. In first class, the two children sat close together, unaware that in a few hours their mother's words would become the only shield between them and prejudice. Meanwhile, Naomi, at another altitude, was hurtling toward Denver, the only way she knew how to keep everyone safe. But it was the flight she wasn't on that fate awaited. Mornings at Harbor View International Airport are busy but orderly. The loudspeakers blare. Suitcases roll across marble floors, and the smell of Starbucks coffee mingles with expensive perfume. At Gate C12, where Aurora Air Flight 982 is set to depart, Gloria Bennett stands in her immaculately pressed navy blue uniform. At 62, Gloria is one of Aurora Air's most veteran flight attendants. She has seen a generation of passengers, from young first-time job seekers to transcontinental business travelers. But today, when she saw the twins walk up to the check-in counter with their small silver suitcases, she smiled as if she were seeing someone she knew. Luna walked slowly, holding the ticket, while Leo pulled their suitcases. Both of them wore small badges, Future Captain, Aurora Air. Gloria knew at a glance this was Naomi Carter's child. "Hello, little pilots," she said warmly. "It is my honor to fly with you today." Luna smiled politely. "My mother said you were the best in the sky." Gloria laughed. Her old heart softened. "So your mother is still exaggerating as before." She bent down to adjust the bow on Luna's shirt, then gently placed her hand on Leo's shoulder. "Seats 2A and 2B are ready. I will take care of the children for the duration of this trip." "Okay?" The two children nodded. Gloria leaned down and whispered as if sharing a secret. "There is something your mother taught me many years ago. When someone looks at you differently, just smile, because a smile is the most beautiful passport." The sentence made Luna nod slightly, and Leo smiled, a little proud without knowing why. Passengers began to line up to board the plane. The boarding pass reader beeped regularly. Gloria followed the two children, leading them through the priority lane and into the first-class cabin, where soft light poured in from the large windows. The leather seats were soft, and the smell of oak filled the air. "Here it is," she said, pointing to the first row on the left. "Seat 2A for Luna, 2B for Leo. You'll see the pilots when they close the hatch." The two children sat down, eyes wide. For them, this was more than just a flight. It was an adventure. Gloria placed a glass of apple juice and a small package of cookies with the Aurora logo in front of each child. "For future pilots only. But remember, no crumbs, you just cleaned the cabin." They both laughed and nodded. Leo took out the model plane and put it on the table. Luna opened her book and read, still holding the badge her mother wore. A few other passengers looked over and smiled at the two children's politeness. A silver-haired man in row 3 leaned down and whispered to Gloria, "It's rare to see such well-behaved children in first class. It's like they understand this is not a place for noise." Gloria smiled. "They understand, because their mother is the one who taught the whole company how to behave." The atmosphere in the cabin was pleasant. The engine was quiet. The lighting was soft. And everyone was seated. A white female passenger wearing a beige sweater sitting in seat 1C smiled and tilted her head to Luna Honey. "Where are you going?" "I'm flying to San Vicente, ma'am." "Where's your mom?" "She's in Denver, working for Aurora." The woman nodded, then turned away, her smile still on her face. Gloria watched the scene, feeling strangely warm inside. She had witnessed many scenes on flights, people crying, people laughing, people parting, but rarely had any passengers made her feel as at ease as these two children. She bent down and said softly, "Luna, Leo, if anything scares you, just press the call button. No matter what happens, I'm always right here." They both nodded, then looked out the window, where the runway seemed endless, sunlight beginning to shine on the silver nose of the plane. The pilot announced over the loudspeaker, "Hello, passengers. This is Captain Samuel Porter. We will be taking off in a few minutes bound for San Vicente. The weather forecast is good. The flight is smooth. Thank you for choosing Aurora Air." The engine roared softly. The plane began to taxi. Gloria stood at the front of the cabin, her eyes scanning the passengers one last time before locking the cabin door. She saw Luna whispering something to Leo. "What do you think Mom is doing right now? She's probably flying to Denver. Maybe she sees the clouds like us." The little girl smiled, her voice as small as a breath. "If you look long enough, you might see me in the clouds." Gloria heard and smiled slightly. Those childish words, unexpectedly, were a prophecy for a fateful flight. The plane lifted off the ground and soared into the clouds. In first class, everything was peaceful, as if the outside world did not exist. Gloria walked down the aisle, gently adjusting the blankets for the two children. Little did she know that a few hours later, in this very cabin, she would be the first to run when the slap echoed through the sky. Above, the clouds still drifted, light and clear as the dreams of two children. But at the door of the cabin, as the last passengers boarded, a woman appeared. Expensive perfume and a cold gaze preceded her. And for Madeline Pierce, this flight was not a journey, but a place where she was about to accidentally awaken sleeping justice. She appeared as if the world had to give way. Her blonde hair was tied back. Large sunglasses covered half her face. A pure white linen dress and bright red Louboutin heels. In her hand, an apricot yellow Hermit Birkin bag, an object she considered a symbol of true class. Madeline Pierce, 44, widow of a real estate entrepreneur, is the kind of person that airline staff always recognize even before she says a word. Because just one look from her tells them this is a person who believes that everything in the world is born to serve her. Gloria stood at the head of the first-class cabin, a professional smile on her lips. "Welcome back to Aurora Air. Miss Pierce, your seat is 2C. Right next to Madeline." Didn't wait for Gloria to finish. Her eyes scanned the first-class cabin and stopped. Next to her in seat 2C were two black children. A boy, a girl. Both were giggling, playing with model airplanes. At that moment, Madeline's face changed. She frowned, her lips pressed together as if she had smelled something unpleasant. "Excuse me, this is first class, right?" she asked, her voice emphatic. Gloria kept smiling. "Yes, ma'am. These two young passengers are I don't need to know." Madeline interrupted. "I'm just asking to make sure I'm not on the wrong plane." A few nearby passengers turned, their eyes puzzled. Luna bent down slightly, hugging the book tightly to her chest. Leo clutched the model plane in his hands, his eyes looking up at her, not afraid, just surprised. Madeline dragged her suitcase, walking slowly through the narrow aisle. She deliberately let her bag hit the back of seat 2B, where Luna was sitting. "Sorry, but these seats don't have room for children's toys," she said softly, her voice as sweet as a razor. Gloria opened her mouth, but Luna's eyes looked at her quietly, pleading, "Don't, ma'am." "I'm fine." Her calmness made Gloria pause. She just bowed her head slightly and continued to guide the last passengers. Madeline sat down in seat 2C, placing her Hermes bag on the folding table in front of her, as if it were more precious than anything else. She took off her sunglasses, pulled out her phone, dialed a number, and spoke loudly enough for the whole compartment to hear. "Yes, Henry. I just got on the plane. No, I don't get it. There are children in first class. How bad has Aurora Air become? I have to fly with them." Some passengers looked up. Others avoided her gaze, choosing to remain silent. Gloria heard, but remained calm. It was an instinct of someone who had flown for 30 years, knowing that sometimes silence was the only way to protect the vulnerable. She looked over at the two children. Leo was pretending to stare out the window, and Luna was turning the pages of her book, her hands shaking. No one deserves to be made to feel wrong just because they are present in a place, Gloria thought to herself. Madeline continued the call, her voice flat but filled with contempt. "Yes, I know. It's unbelievable. They even let them sit right next to me. I'll write a formal complaint when we land." Aurora Air needs to relearn the concept of customer class. A man in row 3, Adrian Park, raised his head and said clearly, "Madam, perhaps these children are also customers, just like us." Madeline turned around, smiling thinly. "Oh, you're so sweet, but you've probably never had to pay real money for first class." Adrian raised his eyebrows slightly, then turned away. There was no anger in his eyes, only quiet contempt. Something anyone who had seen too many of Madeline's kind had learned you don't argue with a morally blind person. The cabin door closed, and the boarding complete signal sounded. Gloria went to do a final check, stopping next to Luna and Leo. "Are you two okay?" Luna nodded and said softly, "I'm fine." "Gloria, my mom said if someone doesn't like us, we just have to be nicer to them." Gloria smiled, feeling her heart tighten. She stroked the little girl's hair. "My mother is a very smart person." "Yes," Leo replied softly. "My mother works for Aurora." Gloria nodded, but something flashed in her eyes, a fleeting premonition she couldn't quite name. The engine started, vibrating softly underfoot. Madeline sighed, pulled the blanket halfway up her body, and spoke softly, as if to herself. "I swear, after this trip, I will never fly this airline again." But no one answered. There was only the sound of the engine gradually getting louder, the sound of the propeller blades cutting through the air, and the two children sitting still, silently looking out the window. Outside, the sky opened up, clear and gentle, as if unaware that inside that luxurious cabin, a small storm had just arisen, carrying with it the cold wind of prejudice and complacency. The plane left the runway, light as a bird, but in first class the atmosphere was different. Silent glances, short breaths, and as the plane reached a steady altitude, the tension began to spread like cracks in glass, small, thin, but unstoppable. The soft lighting shifted to flying mode. The first drinks were served. The sound of wine flowing into glasses mingled with the wind outside. Everything seemed normal, except for Madeline Pierce, his eyes sharp, cold, and fixed on seats 2A, 2B. Luna was reading a book with her head down, while Leo carefully placed his tablet on the table. He reached out to grab his earphones from the drawer next to him. At that moment, his small elbow accidentally brushed against Madeline's arm. A light collision, as normal as 100 other situations on an airplane. But Madeline jerked back, as if deeply offended. She gasped, then let out a loud tisk that made several people look up. "Did you just touch me?" Her voice was high and cold, echoing in the quiet space. Leo froze, his face confused. Sorry, I just want to get my headphones. Learn to control yourself, she said, still not lowering her voice. This is not a playground for children. Gloria Bennett, who was serving in the front row, turned around immediately. She approached, her voice calm. Is everything all right, Mrs. Pierce Madeline crossed her arms, her eyes full of drama. Is it okay I just got touched by this kid? I don't understand why they let a child sit next to me in first class. Gloria looked at Leo and saw him bowing his head, his hands clasped in his lap, his eyes filled with tears of shame. She said softly, I apologize for the inconvenience. Ma'am, if you'd like, I can change seats with you. There's a seat available in row 4A. Still first class. Madeline raised her eyebrows, pursed her lips as if thinking, then said a sentence that made Gloria speechless. No, I'm not going anywhere. They should move, not me. The word they dropped like a heavy stone, and everyone understood what she meant. The air in the first-class cabin thickened. A man sitting in row 3C, Adrian Park, a Korean businessman, gently put down his glass of wine and said just loud enough to be heard, I think the stewardess has given a reasonable solution. Ma'am? Madeline turned back, smiling faintly. Thanks, but I don't need anyone to defend me. I paid for this seat. If the airline allows just anyone to sit with me, maybe they need to review their seat allocation policy. A white woman in row 1B looked over and shook her head slightly. They were children, Mrs. Pierce. The whole cabin saw it was only a minor collision. Yes, and I don't need to be touched. Not even a little, Madeline replied, her voice more venomous. Some people need to learn that money can't buy manners, but at least it can buy distance. Her words were like a thin blade cutting through the air. Luna looked up slightly, her eyes watery but clear. I'm sorry, ma'am. My brother didn't mean to. We'll stay still. I promise. Madeline looked at her, her eyes cold, without any sympathy. I don't need an apology. I need respect. That statement made Gloria bite her lip. Ethan Brooks, the male flight attendant who was nearby, immediately approached. He stood up straight, his voice deeper and firmer than Gloria's. Mrs. Pierce, please remain calm. This young passenger has done nothing wrong. Madeline laughed, her laugh sharp as broken glass. Are you defending them, or should I repeat? I can make you lose your job with just one phone call. Ethan was silent, but there was no fear in his eyes. It was the look of someone who had seen arrogance repeated over hundreds of flights and knew that silence did not mean submission. At that moment, a different atmosphere permeated the cabin, uncomfortable, tense. Half the passengers looked at Madeline, the other half at the two children. An invisible divide, like two opposing worlds, formed in midair. Leo squeezed her hand and whispered, Let's just sit still. Luna, Mother said, when someone gets angry, we have to stay calm. Luna nodded, her voice as small as a breath. Yes, I can't disappoint my mother. But it was that calmness, the clear eyes, the patient silence that made Madeline even more upset. Perhaps because she felt as if she were being reflected back, judged. She turned away, took out a tissue to wipe her hands, as if to erase the traces of the invisible collision. This is horrible, she whispered, loud enough for everyone to hear. I would pay thousands of dollars to be comfortable, not to have this happen. Gloria stood still, her hands clutching her notebook. In her mind, she thought of Naomi, the woman she had respected for 10 years working at Aurora. If she had been here, this wouldn't have gone this far. For a long time, when the meal was served, No one said another word, only the sound of spoons lightly hitting china plates. The sound of the engine outside was still as steady as a heartbeat, but in everyone's heart, the smallest sound was the seething sound of injustice. Madeline Pierce sat up straight, adjusting the silk scarf around her neck, her eyes occasionally glancing at the two children. She thought she was teaching them a lesson about standing, but in reality, she was writing the first chapter of a lesson she herself would learn. A drop of apple juice fell on the tray table, small, harmless, but the final spark. In a few minutes, the slap would resound through the air, and no one in first class could pretend they hadn't seen it. The plane was still flying steadily at 35,000 feet. The cabin lights were dimmed. Many passengers were reading newspapers or taking naps. The air seemed calm, but between rows, Dasi, Daubi, 2C, and invisible tension was still growing, with each beat, each breath. Leo Carter turned to her and said softly, "I need to go to the bathroom." Luna nodded. "Go ahead, but remember to knock before entering." The boy unbuckled his seatbelt and stepped out of his seat. As he passed, Madeline Pierce, who was sitting in 2C, accidentally moved her foot, making him stop. Not because she was blocking his way, but because she was looking at him, like she was looking at something that shouldn't be there. "Boy," she said coldly, "remember to wash your hands thoroughly before touching anything." Leo didn't reply. He just bowed slightly and walked away quickly. That statement was enough to make a few passengers behind him look up, their eyes filled with annoyance. Luna watched her brother, feeling a strange mixture of anger and fear, but she remained silent. "You don't need to speak to prove you're right," her mother had told her. "Just be right." As Leo left, Madeline looked around, then gently lifted the apricot Hermes bag and placed it on his seat, 2B. She adjusted the strap, smoothing the surface of the bag as if placing a sacred object on an altar. Luna saw it all. She took a deep breath, then said softly, politely, "Miss, that seat is my brother's. Can you put his bag in the overhead compartment?" Madeline turned, her eyes indifferent. "My dear, that bag shouldn't be up there. Your mother would understand expensive things should be kept in their proper place. But," Luna swallowed, "my sister is coming back soon." "Can you?" Madeline interrupted, her voice becoming sharper. "Colder, kid. You don't understand. In some places, people don't keep valuable things together with, things that can easily get dirty." No one spoke, but the air suddenly froze. Her words were like acid drops in the silence. Luna didn't understand them all, but she sensed the humiliation in her voice. She turned away, her lips pressed together. She meant to say nothing more, like her mother had taught her, but when she saw Leo return from the back of the cabin, eyes bright, a tissue in his hand drying himself off, her heart sank. Leo stopped, frozen in the middle of the aisle. My chair." Madeline didn't look at him. "You can sit somewhere else." "I need space for my bag," Luna said softly, her voice trembling. "Miss Pierce, that's my sister's place. She can leave her bag, I told you." Madeline turned around, her eyes flashing coldly. "I don't want my things touching other people, especially the hand that touched me just now." The words fell like a stone. This time, not only Luna, but several nearby passengers heard them clearly. Adrian Park put down the magazine, tilted his head to look over, his eyes filled with disbelief. Gloria, who was at the back of the compartment, immediately stepped forward. "Mrs. Pierce, what's going on here?" Madeline smiled softly, her voice fake sweet. "It's nothing serious. Gloria, it's just, This boy needs to learn to respect other people's property. Leo stood still, eyes wide open, not understanding why this woman would say that. He just said softly, "I'm sorry. I didn't break your bag." Madeline shrugged, then sighed. "That's good, after all. You know, some people need to remember that some places aren't for everyone." As soon as the words left his mouth, the air in the cabin seemed to drain. The man in row 3 lowered his glass, while the woman in the front row stared at Madeline in disbelief. Gloria looked straight at her, her voice still calm. "Pierce, please keep your language appropriate. This is an international flight, and Aurora Air does not tolerate discrimination of any kind." Madeline chuckled, crossed her arms, and tilted her head. "Really? Then maybe the airline should reconsider selling first-class tickets to everyone." Luna raised her head and looked straight at her. Her eyes were no longer afraid. "My mother said that. Everyone deserves respect, no matter where they sit." Madeline was silent for a few seconds, then curled her lips. "And your mother taught you to talk to adults like that?" Leo took a step forward, standing in front of his sister, his voice trembling but clear. "Please don't say that to my sister." Gloria put her hand on his shoulder and pulled him back gently. "It's okay. Leo, I'm here." Madeline turned away, but everyone saw the line that had formed not just between 2 rows of seats, but between 2 worlds, one of arrogance and privilege, the other of calm dignity. And it was there, in that moment of silence, that something changed. Someone pulled out their phone, not out of curiosity, but because they knew if they didn't record it, the truth might be buried again. The plane was still flying, but the cabin was no longer quiet. Outside, the clouds were white, and inside, the sky was beginning to darken. A storm was brewing, not of the weather, but of the human heart. As the plane shook slightly with turbulence, a few drops of apple juice accidentally squirted from Leo's glass. They didn't hit Madeline's bag, but her eyes lit up as if she'd just found the excuse she'd been waiting for all flight. She looked down, her lips curved slightly, her voice low, but clear enough for people sitting nearby to hear. "Kids these days have no manners. Doesn't anyone teach them the difference between class and chaos?" Luna put down her glass, her voice trembling, but still trying to stay calm. "I'm sorry, ma'am. I'll clean the table." Madeline looked at her, the smile never reaching her eyes. "No need, my dear. After all, someone like you should be used to serving others, right?" The words froze the air in the cabin. Leo clenched his fists, his knuckles white, but he said nothing. Gloria, who was in the front row, glanced over. She could tell something was wrong. But before she could, Madeline leaned down again, whispering loud enough for only the 2 children to hear. "That's surprising. I thought this airline had clear standards, but now they probably accept scholarships from some charity program." Luna bowed her head, her hair covering half her face. She didn't understand the full meaning, but she sensed the contempt in every word. Her voice continued, low but sharp as a knife. "It's strange to see someone like your mother allowing this. Well, if she really cared, she probably would have chosen another flight." Leo turned, eyes flashing with anger, but Luna touched his arm lightly, shaking her head slightly. "Don't," she whispered. "Mom doesn't want us to argue." Madeline heard and smiled faintly. "You don't want your children to argue? Or are you afraid of the truth?" No one answered. The steady hum of the engine outside seemed to be the only sound in the cabin. Leo bowed his head, lips pursed, eyes watering. He felt so small he wanted to disappear. Luna put her hand on his back, rubbing it gently the way their mother used to do when they were bullied at school. "We just need to calm down," she said softly, her voice steady beyond her 8 years. "Mom would be proud of us." Madeline looked at the two children coldly. Perhaps she had not expected that reaction. There was something in their silence that made her feel challenged. Pride, she chuckled. How pitiful. Perhaps pride is the only thing you have. Leo looked up, his eyes filled with tears, but not fear. He opened his mouth, but Luna was quicker, placing her hand on his shoulder, shaking her head slightly. She looked straight at Madeline, her voice soft and strangely polite. "I think you're wrong. My mother taught me that people are only truly poor when they lose their humanity." Madeline was silent, only for a moment. Part of her seemed taken aback, not by the words, but by the way they were said. Not angry, not defiant, just a gentle reminder, like a mirror holding up to herself. But then, her pride pulled her back. "How sweet. Your mother clearly has a knack for moralizing, but unfortunately it doesn't apply to real life." Luna said nothing more, just turned away, her eyes fixed on the window. Beneath the night sky, silver clouds glittered with moonlight. She told herself Mother is out there somewhere. She will know. She will not let this go. In the back row, Adrian Park gently put his phone down on the table. Muted. He recorded part of the conversation, not out of curiosity, but because he felt that this was a moment when adult silence was no longer an option. Gloria Bennett, as she passed by, saw the pale faces of the two children and stopped. "Are you two okay?" Her voice was low and warm. Luna nodded, but Leo just bowed his head and did not reply. Gloria understood immediately. She did not say anything more, just gently placed her hand on Leo's shoulder, then turned to look at Madeline, her eyes cold but calm. "Ma'am, if you need more blankets or water, I can bring them right away." Madeline smiled sarcastically. "Thank you, Gloria. I don't need anything, just a little quiet and distance." Gloria nodded, but in her heart, she had already decided when she landed. She would file an official report, and if necessary, she would send this video straight to the CEO's office. The atmosphere in the cabin was now as thick as the air before a storm. The passengers were silent, but all eyes were fixed on the same spot. No one spoke, but everyone knew that something was wrong. Right in front of them, right in the sky, where everyone had to believe they were equal. Leo tilted his head and whispered, "Luna, I want to go home." The girl pursed her lips and softly replied, "We'll be back soon, and Mom will hear everything." Madeline turned away, gently lifted her wine glass, and took a sip. But in the reflection of her eyes through the glass, she did not see herself. She saw two children sitting silently, their eyes without hatred, only a purity that made her feel more uncomfortable than the words of protest. The whole cabin held its breath. Everything had become so fragile that the slightest collision, an action, a word, would be enough to break the final boundary between restraint and explosion. Then the moment came. A slight shake tipped the glass of apple juice, a few drops rolling down beside the Hermes bag. Not touching, but enough to make Madeline stand up. And the fateful slap, the slap in the sky, was about to ring out, shattering the silence of justice. The plane shuddered slightly, as if taking a breath of cold air from the clouds. Leo's glass of apple juice slid a little on the table. A few drops rolled down, landing on the edge of the aluminum tray. But Madeline Pierce's eyes immediately dropped, fixed on her apricot yellow Hermes bag. "What is this?" Her voice was as sharp as a knife, making the whole front row turn around. Leo stopped, eyes wide open, Hand hurriedly blocked the glass, mouth stammering, "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. It's just not on purpose," she interrupted. Standing up, "You just broke my bag. Do you know how much this is worth?" She gripped the boy's wrist so tightly that Leo flinched. Her voice rose, shaking with anger. $15,000. Do you understand? Boy, $15,000. Her voice echoed throughout the cabin, startling the sleeping occupants. Luna jumped up from her seat and rushed forward. "Miss, please let my brother go." The water didn't get on the bag. Ethan Brooks, the male steward, had just returned from checking the galley and hurried over. "What's the matter, Mrs.?" Pierce Madeline didn't answer him, her eyes still on Leo, her hands still clasped around his wrist. "Get your manager here right now. I'm going to sue the company for letting these brats ruin my stuff." Her voice was high-pitched, each word like a whip lashing the air. Ethan placed his hand on her shoulder and said calmly, "Mrs. Pierce, please lower your voice. Nothing is broken. I will check and clean if necessary." "No need for you to check. Who do you think you are?" She turned around, her eyes filled with anger. "This is my property. I want these two kicked out of first class. Do you hear me?" Luna took a deep breath, her voice small but firm. "We didn't do anything wrong. You're hurting my brother." Madeline turned around, her eyes blazing. "Pain. What about me? Huh? What am I supposed to endure, being soiled by people who don't know where they are?" That sentence made Adrian Park put down the newspaper, his voice low and clear. "Mrs. Pierce, I see very clearly. Nothing fell on your bag." A woman in the front row spoke up to support. "Yes, I saw it too. Just a few drops of apple juice fell on the table." But Madeline didn't listen. She pulled her hand away from Leo's wrist, then suddenly gave him a hard shove across the face that sent him reeling. "I said, don't touch me." Luna instinctively pulled her hand back, blocking him. "Don't do that. Your brother did nothing wrong." The girl had barely finished speaking when Madeline raised her hand. A dry smack echoed through the air. Her handprint was clear on Luna's cheek, a bright red mark, burning like a stain in first class. For a moment, the cabin was silent. There was only the sound of gasping and the slight shudder of the engine. No one could believe what they had just seen. Leo stood there, stunned, then rushed to hug her and shouted, "You can't hit my sister. You can't." Madeline took a half step back, but her eyes remained fixed, as if she were the victim herself. They attacked me first. Gloria Bennett ran up from behind, almost throwing the tray of water to the ground. She hugged the two children, shielding them in front. Her voice choked. "What did you just do? You just hit a child?" Ethan Brooks immediately turned on the radio. "Captain Porter, we have a serious incident in first class. Request an emergency landing if necessary." Captain Samuel Porter replied quickly from the cockpit, his voice tense. "Understood. Maintain calm. I'll notify airport security to pick you up at San Vicente." Gloria hugged Luna, looking at the red handprint on her cheek. Her heart trembled. She whispered softly, "It's okay." "Honey, I'm here." Luna didn't cry. She just looked up, her eyes blank, her lips pressed together. Leo squeezed her small hand, trembling but not letting go. All around, passengers pulled out their phones. A man said loudly, "I got it all. Don't worry, niece." Another woman spoke up. "Aurora Air will not let this go." As for Madeline, seeing all the cameras focused on her, she suddenly lowered her voice and sat down heavily in her chair. I was just defending myself. I was offended first. Ethan stood straight, his eyes never leaving her. No, Miss Pierce, I was here, and I saw it. You slapped an 8-year-old. You will be held accountable. Madeline opened her mouth to speak, but no words came. The cabin was filled with the murmur of the passengers, like a small wave breaking over a beach, rushing, discontented, angry. Gloria was still kneeling beside the 2 children. She took a cold towel and placed it on Luna's cheeks, softly saying, "You did well. Luna, you didn't have to say anything. Everyone saw it." Her eyes glistened in the dim light, not with tears, but with something deeper, an awakening of dignity. Outside, the plane was still drifting quietly through the clouds, but inside, the storm had broken out, and no one in first class could ever go back to the way things were. Naomi Carter, a mother of 2, had just received 23 missed calls, and among them, there was a short text message that made her heart sink. Luna got slapped. Meanwhile, at 35,000 feet, the first-class cabin of Flight 982 was still in chaos, but it was an orderly chaos. The eerie silence was broken by the buzzing of cameras, the sounds of breathing, and a few small, nervous voices. Gloria Bennett knelt down beside rows 2A, 2B. She checked Luna's condition again, gently wiping the red marks on her cheeks with a cold towel. Her eyes trembled, but her voice remained calm. "It's okay, honey. I promise no one will hurt you again." Leo Carter still held her hand tightly, looking at the woman who had just slapped his sister, as if trying to understand how the adult world could be so cruel. On the opposite side, Madeline Pierce slumped into her chair, her face red, not with regret, but with shame and anger at the sight of dozens of cameras focused on her. "I am being slandered," she shouted, her voice breaking. "They injured me, and now they are making up this story to harm me." Adrian Park, a Korean businessman, stood up, his voice calm but resolute. "Nobody's making anything up, Mrs. Pierce. I filmed the whole thing, and if you need it, I'll give it to the captain right now." A few other passengers nodded, holding up their phones, the light of the screens reflecting off Madeline's angry face. "I turned too," a woman said. "We cannot be silent when she beats a child like that." The atmosphere in the cabin suddenly changed. Amidst the cold of prejudice, another warmth began to spread, the solidarity of those who witnessed justice. Ethan Brooks turned to Gloria and nodded slightly. "Miss Gloria, I will take a witness statement. Please help me confirm the time and location." She replied quickly, her voice even first class. "Row 2, 4:38 flight time. I have video from the passenger and images from the internal camera." Captain Samuel Porter spoke over the intercom, his voice deep and steely. "This is the captain. I ask all passengers to remain calm. The incident is being handled. We have contacted San Vicente Airport security. Upon landing, security personnel will be at the gate. I repeat, please remain quiet." His words were like a line drawing a line in space. Everyone sat still, but their eyes were all on row 2C. Madeline clutched her Hermes bag, her voice trembling. "You are treating me like a criminal. I am the victim here. I will call a lawyer. I will sue this airline." Ethan wrote down every word. Without looking up, "You have the right to do so, Ms. Pierce. But first, you need to cooperate in completing the paperwork. This is Aurora Air's procedure." Gloria held Luna's hand, but something had changed in her eyes. No longer fear, but a quiet faith that justice would not sleep this time. Adrian Park walked over and handed the phone to Ethan. "Here, my video. It's clear from start to finish. There was no action on the part of the kids other than self-defense." Ethan looked over, his eyes reddening slightly. He took a deep breath, then turned back to look at Madeline. "Do you have anything to add to the report? I was just defending myself. That girl," she stammered. "She looked at me defiantly." A challenge in the middle of first class sounded pitifully out of place. No one responded. Some shook their heads. Others remained silent, knowing that any words would only make her feel smaller. Luna sat still, her eyes fixed on the floor. Her small hands trembled slightly, but when Gloria placed her hand on her shoulder, she looked up, her eyes determined. "My dear," Luna said softly, "my mother used to say that when someone does something bad, the worst thing is to make them believe they are right." Gloria was speechless. She never thought an 8-year-old could say something that would silence the entire cabin like that. Captain Porter opened the cockpit door and stepped out. He was a large man with silver hair and a calm face. "Is everything recorded?" he asked. Ethan nodded, handed over the minutes and the phone with the video. "Yes, sir." Porter looked over the seats, his eyes stopping at Luna and Leo. "Are you two okay?" Leo nodded, and Luna just replied softly, "I'm fine, Uncle." Porter bowed slightly. "Good job. Thanks for staying calm. Not all adults can do what you two do." Then he turned to Ethan, his voice cold. "When you land, airport security will come in first. Give them all the evidence. Mrs. Pierce will be asked to work with them." Madeline turned pale. "You can't do that. I have the right. And these 2 children have rights, too." "Ma'am," Porter replied, "the right to fly safely without being hit, insulted, or frightened. This is no one's plane. This is Aurora Air." The first-class cabin was dead silent. The words, simple, calm, rang out like a silent verdict. Madeline bowed her head, still clutching the gold purse, clinging to the only symbol of her being. But no one looked at her. All eyes were on the 2 children, hurt but remarkably calm. Gloria said softly, as if talking to herself, "There are slaps that do not leave marks on the skin, but leave marks on the conscience." Outside, the captain's voice came over the loudspeaker. "Prepare to descend. Temperature in San Vicente is 72 degrees. Thank you for your quiet." In first class, people looked at each other in silence, a silence not of fear, but of witnessing. As the plane touched down on the San Vicente runway, dozens of green lights flashed outside the windows. 2 security officers were waiting, and in the crowd, a woman was running down the jetway. Naomi Carter, CEO of Aurora Air, and mother of 2 traumatized children. But hours earlier, nearly 800 miles away, at Aurora Air headquarters in Denver, Naomi had been sitting in a large, glass-walled conference room overlooking a rain-soaked runway. The emergency meeting about the fuel crisis was taking too long, and she had begun to think about calling the twins before they went to bed. The phone on the table kept vibrating. 23 missed calls, all from Gloria Bennett, the chief flight attendant of Flight 982. Naomi frowned slightly. Gloria was not the type to call while flying, unless it was serious. She picked up the phone, her voice calm. "Gloria, I'm listening." On the other end of the line, Gloria's voice choked up. "Madam, it's me, Gloria Bennett. I'm on Flight 982 bound for San Vicente." "What's wrong?" Naomi asked, clearly sensing the abnormality in the rapid breathing. There was a short silence, then 3 words fell out, cold and heavy as lead. "Luna got slapped." Naomi stood up abruptly, her chair sliding back. The entire conference room froze, several directors looking at each other, not understanding what was happening. "What did you say?" Naomi asked again, her voice low, but each word seemed to cut through the air. Gloria told it quickly, no fluff, no excuses, just the facts, the incident, the witnesses, the video, and the security being deployed at the destination airport. Naomi was silent for a few seconds. Her hand clenched the phone until it turned white. Then she spoke slowly. "Send me the full cabin report, internal camera video, passenger and crew lists, immediately." Hanging up. Naomi raised her head to look at the crowded conference room. She said briefly, expressionlessly, "The meeting is over." "But, Madam Carter," I said, "finish." The conference room door closed behind her. Naomi walked quickly to her private office, her voice echoing down the hallway as she called her assistant Olivia. "Prepare the private plane. Destination San Vicente International. Takeoff in 20 minutes. "Yes, ma'am." Sitting down, Naomi opened her laptop and opened the internal bulletin that was being updated from the flight control team. The cold text appeared, "Incident report. Physical altercation in first class. Victim Luna Carter." In that moment, all the composure of a CEO disappeared, leaving only the mother. Her heart pounded. The image of Luna's round cheeks and shy smile appeared like a knife. She swallowed, her eyes shining with a look that was no longer emotion, but determination. Naomi turned on the internal speaker, her voice calm again. "Legal. Get on the line. I need to file charges against passenger Madeline Pierce. Assault on a minor, federal charge. Also banned from flying forever. Immediately. Understood. Madam Carter." She continued, "Get Flight 982 data, passenger camera, cabin cam, and cockpit audio. I want all the evidence ready when my plane touches down in San Vicente." Then she leaned back in her chair and took a deep breath. Part of her wanted to cry her mother, but the other part, the part of the woman who had built Aurora Air with her own intelligence and discipline, was cold, meticulous, and iron. Olivia Grant, personal assistant, walked in, tablet in hand. "The plane is ready. I've called the internal security team to come with me." "Thank you. Olivia, bring Madeline Pierce's personnel file. See if she has any contact with any of our partners." "Yes. I did a quick check. She is the wife of Gregory Pierce, a minority shareholder in Lancer Financial Group, Aurora Air's banking partner." Naomi closed her eyes and nodded. "Good. Prepare a copy of the Lancer contract. If they have someone like that in their house, I need to review this partnership." She stood up, adjusted her coat, and looked out the window where the Aurora jet was waiting in the dark. Denver was drenched in a light rain, the airport lights reflecting off the wet glass like 1,000 unshed tears. Olivia asked softly, "Do you want me to contact the press first, or wait until you meet the kids?" Naomi turned back, her voice low but clear. "We don't let this be a sensation. We let it be a lesson, and the lesson must be heard far and wide." As he stepped into the hallway, employees stood aside. They had never seen their CEO like this. No yelling, no anger, but a weight in each step that silenced the entire building. That woman, Naomi Carter, was not just a good executive. She was a symbol of fairness in the airline industry. A woman who believed that everyone in the air is equal. And now, someone had slapped that belief away with the hand of arrogance and prejudice. When she boarded the plane, Naomi didn't look at anyone. She just said to the captain, "Take off as soon as the runway is cleared. I need to get to San Vicente before Flight 982 lands." The captain nodded and replied with only one sentence, "Yes, Madam Carter." The engine roared through the rain. Naomi sat in the front row, eyes turned outward. Her heart filled with more than just a mother's anger, but the resolve of a woman who understood that when justice is silent for too long, it must be spoken through action. As the Aurora jet broke through the clouds, Naomi flipped open her phone and watched the video Gloria had sent. In the pale blue light of the screen, she saw Madeline's hand strike down, saw Luna's horrified eyes, and then her face suddenly turned cold as steel. "Prepare the case. Olivia. When I get there, I want her grounded immediately." The plane hurtled through the night, cutting through the wind like a silver arrow. Inside the cabin, the engine hummed steadily. Only the light from the dashboard illuminated Naomi's face. Her face was expressionless, but her eyes held what people called silent strength. Olivia Grant, sitting opposite, remained silent, focused on her laptop. On the screen, she was compiling Madeline Pierce's profile personal information, social status, financial connections. Next to her, Cameron Holt, head of internal security, was reviewing regulations in preparation for handling the incident legally. Naomi paused on a frame of the video, the image of Luna curling up, her small hand covering her cheek, and Leo hugging her. She stared at it for a long moment. The light reflected in her eyes, sparkling but cold. "Olivia, stop the video at the 12th second." Olivia followed. Naomi pointed to the background where several passengers were filming. "I would like to verify the identities of all passengers in this frame. Send them an official thank you in the internal statement. They are witnesses to the truth, and Aurora Air is grateful for that." Her voice didn't shake, nor was it high, nor was it weak. It had the timbre of someone trying to keep herself from shattering into 100 pieces. Cameron raised his head. "Madam, legally, we can handle this on 2 levels, internal aviation and federal criminal. Which one do you want to prioritize first?" Naomi looked straight at him, without thinking. "Both. No priorities. No one is allowed to hit a child on my plane, especially if it's the child of any passenger." Cameron nodded, making a quick note on the file. "I will contact the Federal Aviation Administration and the SVI Airport Police in advance. They will be waiting at the pickup gate." Naomi nodded slightly. Then she closed her eyes and leaned back in her seat. For a few seconds, she said nothing. The only sound in the cabin was the hum of the engines. Olivia looked at her, the woman respected by the entire aviation industry, and saw that her hands were shaking slightly, whether from anger or pain. She wasn't sure. Then Naomi opened her eyes. She was calm again, like a storm had just settled into its center. "Olivia, write a press release. Neutral tone. No emotion, no accusations, just facts. State clearly, Aurora Air is committed to protecting all passengers and will not tolerate any discrimination or violence, regardless of the perpetrator." "Yes, I understand." Naomi continued. "Prepare a permanent grounding order for Madeline Pierce. Activate emergency no-fly procedures. I will sign electronically upon landing." Olivia nodded, her fingers moving quickly over the keyboard. Naomi took a cup of black coffee from the serving tray, but did not drink. She looked at it for a long moment, as if looking at still water. "You know, Olivia," she said softly, "when I was a flight attendant, a passenger threw coffee at me. He told me I didn't deserve to be here. I didn't say anything back, but I swore that if I ever had the power, I wouldn't let anyone else do that." Olivia was silent. These were not words of woe. They were the memories of someone who had stood at the bottom of prejudice and now used power to erase it through justice, not revenge. Naomi leaned back, her voice low, almost a confession. "Anger doesn't make you fly higher. It only makes you fall faster. I will let the truth do what anger can't." Cameron received the signal from the command center and raised his head. "Madam, We have direct contact with the SVI Security Command. They confirmed that they will deploy a rapid response team as soon as Flight 982 lands. Good, Naomi replied. When they board the plane, I want all passengers to leave safely. No police noise, no press push. Let justice take its course in silence. Cameron smiled slightly, as if understanding the philosophy of the woman sitting before her, silent justice, which the media had once dubbed her after handling crises without a harsh word, but enough to change the entire industry. Time passed slowly. The clock read 11:42 p.m. The plane was moving slowly toward the sea. Beneath the wing, the city of San Vicente began to appear like a faint streak of light in the darkness. Naomi turned the screen on again, watching the entire video. But this time, she didn't stop at Luna getting slapped. She watched the rest of it, the part where Gloria shielded the two children, the part where the passengers held up their phones to film, the part where Ethan took the report, and the part where Captain Porter said something she hadn't heard before. These two children have as much right to safety as anyone else. This is Aurora Air. She smiled slightly. It was a thin smile, but enough to push back the waves of anger still lingering in her chest. Olivia, she said slowly, thank you to the crew, and especially Gloria, Ethan, and Captain Porter. They kept Aurora Air's dignity intact, even when I wasn't there. Yes, madam. Naomi put her coffee cup down on the table and looked out the window. Below, the night sea stretched out, the harbor lights reflecting like falling stars on the water. Cameron, she said, her voice calm but cold, when we land, I want to see that woman. Not to argue, but to let her know who she slapped. Cameron nodded, saying nothing more. He understood. This was no longer just a mother's story. It was the declaration of a woman once despised, now teaching the world that dignity does not require shouting to be heard. The Aurora jet descended. Naomi looked at her watch. 12:03 a.m. She took a deep breath, adjusted her tie, and whispered a promise to herself justice will not need to shout. It will step in high heels, with the truth in its hand. When the plane touched down on the San Vicente runway, Naomi was ready. Security and media were waiting at the gate, but before anything else, she just wanted to see her two children, Luna and Leo, to hug them tightly, and then face the man who had soiled her sky. The San Vicente sky was tinged with the late afternoon sun, its red rays reflecting off the terminal windows. At the head of the runway, Aurora Air Flight 982 had just landed. Inside, the first-class cabin was tensely silent. No one spoke, only the click of seatbelts and a few sighs of relief at the end of the flight. But everyone knew the real story was just beginning. The plane doors opened. Two security officers, Officer Raymond Thompson and Officer Isabel Morales, stepped on, their black uniforms standing out against the yellow lights in the cabin. They conferred briefly with Ethan Brooks, who was holding the clipboard, and Gloria Bennett, who held the video tablet. Is everything stable? Officer Raymond asked in a low voice. Ethan nodded. She's stable, but Ms. Pierce needs to be separated. There are multiple witnesses and video evidence. Madeline looked up, her eyes red with anger and fear. I was attacked. I will sue all of you. Officer Morales calmly placed his hand lightly on the flashlight handle at his side. Ms. Pierce, we are just following procedure. Please cooperate. At the back of the compartment. Luna sat close to Leo, her small hands still shaking. Gloria bent down, gently stroked her hair, her voice as soft as the wind. Your mother is on her way. Luna blinked, her lips pursed, trying to hold back tears. Leo took her hand and whispered, I heard your mother's plane. Right. Gloria smiled. Yes. Son, I'm coming. And just then, the jetway doors opened. The sound of hurried footsteps echoed. A woman in a black suit, her hair neatly tied up, her face cold, but her eyes burning Naomi Carter. Without waiting for anyone to report, she almost ran through the narrow corridor, passing 2 security guards and the stunned people. She stopped when she saw the 2 children. For a moment, the world stopped. Naomi knelt down, opening her arms. Chief. Voice. The 2 children rushed forward, sobbing uncontrollably. Naomi held them tightly, her face buried in their shoulders, her hands stroking their soft hair as if afraid that if she let go, they would disappear. She said nothing. There was only heavy breathing, mixed with silent tears, something rarely seen in the CEO of the country's largest airline corporation. After a few seconds, she looked up. Her gaze shifted from pain to something else cold, sharp, and steady. She looked at Officer Thompson. Have you started the legal process yet? Yes, Mrs. Yee. Carter, all evidence has been collected. Passenger Madeline Pierce will be interviewed at the airport. Naomi nodded. Her voice was low, but every word carried the weight of authority. Thanks. Now, where is she? No one needed to answer. For Madeline Pierce. His loud voice rang out from the front. You have no right to do this to me. I'll call my husband, Gregory Pierce. He's a shareholder in this company. He'll get her fired. Naomi turned around. No introduction needed, no questions asked. She walked slowly toward the front row. The click of her high heels on the metal floor made the air in the cabin thick. When they were only a few steps away, Madeline recognized the face. Her eyes widened. Her voice choked. You are... Naomi stopped right beside him, without raising her voice. Naomi Carter, CEO of Aurora Air. A silence fell, thick as if the air had stopped moving. Naomi looked straight into her eyes. Her eyes were not angry, not contemptuous, just cold and clear as calm water, reflecting the truth. And the 2 children you just hit, she paused, are my children. Madeline paled. Her lips moved, but no words came out. Naomi stopped looking at her. She turned to Officer Morales. Continue with the process. I want to make sure everything is done according to the law. No special privileges, no exceptions. Then she looked down at Luna and Leo, her voice softening, as soft as a lullaby. I'm here. It's over. You're safe. Gloria stood behind, her eyes wet. She said softly, Madam, I'm sorry. I tried. Naomi put her hand on her shoulder, smiling. No, Gloria, you did the right thing. Aurora will appreciate that. Meanwhile, Adrian Park and a few other passengers walked up, holding up their phones. We have the entire footage. Mrs. Carter, if needed, we're willing to testify. Naomi nodded her thanks. Thank you, not just for me, but for justice. Madeline remained still, her face white. All eyes were on her. They were not hateful, only disappointed, the kind of look that would make you bow your head more than any insult. Naomi walked toward the exit, still holding the 2 children, but before leaving, she stopped and turned to look back, where Madeline was being escorted by security. Her voice rang out, low and calm. In the sky, there are no classes. There are only those who know respect, and those who need to learn it again. No one said anything, only the sound of the security suitcase's wheels rolling across the floor. Naomi continued walking, her arms still holding the 2 small lives she swore to protect, not just with power, but with dignity. The jetway doors closed behind them. Outside, the light of the terminal flooded in, warm and peaceful. The sky still held the last traces of purple from sunset, a reminder that no matter how deep the darkness, justice, however silent, still knew how to come at the right moment. As Naomi took the two children off the plane, Madeline was escorted past the line of passengers filming. But there was another person waiting at the end of the gate. Gregory Pierce, Madeline's husband, with a grim face and a phone in his hand, where video of the incident has spread across social media. The arrivals gate at San Vicente International was packed. News of the first-class incident had spread faster than the plane could taxi. On screens in the waiting area, news reports played back a grainy video, a blonde woman in a white dress slapping a young black girl in a petite uniform. Text scrolled underneath passenger assaults child on Aurora Air Flight 982, investigation underway. There was a commotion as Madeline was escorted out the door by two security officers. Flashes flashed, cameras raised. Her head was bowed, her hair disheveled, her eyes dark. Her designer coat only added to the somber image a self-styled elite now standing in the crowd, shackled in cold handcuffs. In front, Gregory Pierce stepped out. His black suit was elegant. His tie was loose. His face was stiff. He didn't look around, just stared straight at the woman being led forward. Gregory Madeline cried hoarsely, You are here. They won't let me explain. They are slandering me." Gregory didn't answer right away. He held up his phone, the video playing back Madeline's hand coming down on Luna's little face, the muffled scream, the chaos that followed. No editing, no rewinding, just the truth, raw and undeniable. "Is this slander?" he asked, his voice low, even, and frighteningly cold. Madeline shook her head, tears welling up. "You have to understand. They touched my Hermes bag." Gregory interrupted. "Did you just say they?" She hesitated, but still said weakly, "Those two kids." "I didn't mean to." Gregory sighed, a heavy sigh of a man who had just seen something inside him break. He looked straight at his wife, his eyes filled with a mixture of pity and contempt. "You know, Madeline, for years I tried to believe that beneath your arrogance there was still some kindness, but now I'm sure I was wrong." She fumbled, trying to step forward, but was held back by Officer Morales. "You can't turn your back on me. The media is distorting everything. You have to tell them it's not my fault." Gregory shook his head, his eyes darting around. Dozens of reporters, passengers, and live streamers were watching. "I can't protect you, Madeline. Not this time. Not after the whole world saw what you did to a baby." She trembled, her voice lost. "You said you can't protect me." "Not only can't," Gregory said slowly, "but won't." He took off his wedding ring and placed it in the hand of the nearest officer. "Give it back to her. I am ending this marriage now." The crowd roared. Some took out their phones to film the scene. There was a chaotic sound, a few murmurs, a few sighs, and somewhere a middle-aged woman said softly, "That is the price of pride." Madeline collapsed, her knees hitting the floor. Her hair fell over her face, and her sobs were muffled by the noise. She tried to look up at Gregory, but he had turned away. His back was gone, lost in the crowd, leaving the woman who had despised the world now despised by the world. Officer Raymond signaled. Two officers stepped forward and carefully lifted Madeline to her feet. The handcuffs clicked, sharp and decisive. "Ms. Madeline Pierce, you are under arrest for assault of a minor on a commercial flight. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say may be used as evidence in a court of law." Madeline did not reply. She only muttered, almost delirious. "No, I am a person of the upper class. I can't." But those words were lost in the sound of footsteps, the sound of cameras, and the cold wind blowing down the airport corridor, not far away. Naomi stood silently, holding the 2 children in her arms. She said nothing, just watched the scene with a calm gaze, not happy, not gloating, only the silence of someone who understands that justice, once it comes, does not need to be shown off. Gloria and Ethan stood behind, also looking. Gloria said softly, "Madam?" "She paid the price." Naomi turned back, her voice low but soft. "No, Gloria, the real price isn't being caught. It's having your honor destroyed by your own actions." Leo raised his head, his voice immature. "Mom, is she in jail?" Naomi bent down and stroked her daughter's hair. "Maybe, but more importantly, son, she'll have to learn to act like a human being again." Luna held her mother's hand and whispered, "Mom, aren't you angry?" Naomi smiled, her eyes softening. "I was angry, daughter. But then I remembered anger makes you look like you're wrong. Calm helps you win in the most unexpected way." The 2 children nodded, then leaned their heads on their mother's shoulders. In the distance, Madeline was led past the cameras, her face bowed, her eyes empty. Each step seemed to sink deeper into the humiliation that no brand, no business card could cover. And in the midst of that crowd, Naomi turned away, walking towards the VIP door, where the warm light awaited. Her voice rang out, small, but clear enough for Gloria to hear. "Send a short statement. Aurora Air thanks passengers for maintaining dignity amid adversity. In the sky, there is no room for prejudice." Gloria nodded. Naomi held her 2 children's hands and walked slowly. Behind her, the sound of cameras continued to ring, but she did not turn around. Because for Naomi Carter, true victory is not about making the wrongdoer submit. It is about maintaining dignity in the moment when it is most vulnerable. As the VIP door closed, Naomi sat down on the chair, her 2 children leaning against her lap. She looked out the glass windows, where the sunset had faded, and knew that the sky tonight, though dark, was clearer than ever. 3 months later, Aurora Air is once again in the media spotlight, but this time not because of a scandal, but because of the opposite, a moment of restored trust. The large press conference room at San Vicente International Airport was decorated simply but solemnly. The silver Aurora bird logo stood out against the white background, in front of which were rows of reporters' chairs, cameras, and bright lights. The atmosphere in the room was filled with anticipation. When Naomi Carter stepped out, all the noise died down. She wore a light gray suit, not too fussy. Her face still exuded the calm of someone who had weathered a storm without letting it derail her. She smiled slightly, then spoke, her voice warm and even, not the voice of a CEO giving a speech, but of a mother speaking a lesson the world needs to hear. 3 months ago, an unfortunate incident occurred on our flight. It not only traumatized 2 children, but also caused the entire aviation industry to reflect on itself. Today, I am not here to rehash mistakes, but to talk about how we can fix them. The reporters were silent. Naomi continued, Aurora Air will be implementing the Wings of Equality program, a new code of conduct, mandatory training for all employees, from flight attendants to executives. We want everyone, regardless of skin color or status, to be greeted with the same smile and respect. She paused for a moment, then looked towards the front row, where the 2 children sat, Luna and Leo, now looking more mature, in their school uniforms. still wearing the small future captain badges their mother had given them on their chests. "We are also announcing," Naomi continued, "that Aurora Air will donate $5 million to civil rights organizations under the Luna and Leo Foundation to promote empathy and anti-discrimination education in the community." Below, applause broke out. Many reporters could not contain their emotions, nodding, some even wiping away tears. A reporter asked Mrs. Carter, "How was the matter with Ms. Madeline Pierce?" Handled Naomi was silent for a second, then replied, still in a calm voice, "The court has reached a verdict. Ms. Pierce was convicted of assaulting a minor, received 200 hours of community service, and was required to attend an anger management program and community training. Her divorce was also finalized. That was justice, but not the only thing worth remembering." She tilted her head slightly, her voice becoming softer, as if saying the most important thing. "What is remarkable is that society did not remain silent. The people on that flight did not turn away. And that is how human dignity is defended, not by power, but by the courage of ordinary people." The room suddenly burst into prolonged applause, not because of the promise, but because people believed that this was a woman of her word. Naomi bowed her head in thanks, then stepped down and walked towards Gloria Bennett, the veteran flight attendant standing in the back row. "Gloria," she said, taking her hand, "Aurora would not have been able to keep her honor without you that day." Gloria smiled, her eyes crinkling in simple pride. "I was only doing what a mother would do. Madam, protect the children." Naomi nodded slightly, and she did it better than anyone. Captain Samuel Porter, who had commanded Flight 982, approached. He shook Naomi's hand, his eyes stern but warm. "This airline deserves a leader who knows what humanity is," Naomi replied, her voice tinged with modesty. "It's not charity, Captain. It's responsibility. When you run something that can lift people to the sky, you have to make sure it doesn't drag anyone down to the ground." After the press conference, when everyone had left, Naomi lingered. She looked around the emptying room, then took her 2 children's hands and led them to the boarding area. The 3 of them walked along the brightly lit corridor. At Gate C-12, where the story had begun 3 months earlier, a new sign now hung, "Aurora Air, where everyone belongs." Naomi stopped, bent down, and asked softly, "Do you 2 remember where you sat that day?" Luna smiled. 2A and 2B. "That's right," Naomi smiled. "And today, we'll be sitting there." She led the 2 children onto the new plane still, Flight 982. But now first class was no longer a symbol of privilege. It was a symbol of renewed confidence. Gloria stood at the door, still smiling gently as ever. "Welcome back, future captains." Luna and Leo cheered, running to hug her. Naomi watched the scene, her eyes shining with quiet pride. The 3 of them sat down in seats, 2A, 2B, 2C. The soft light coming through the window illuminated the silver badges on the 2 children's chests. Naomi spoke softly, loud enough for both of them to hear. "You know, Luna, Leo, not everyone is born to be in first class, but anyone who knows how to respect others deserves to sit here." The 2 nodded. Luna asked Mom, "Is everyone better now?" Naomi looked out the window, where the sky was a deep blue and the clouds were white as paintings. "No one stays good all the time, my dear. But every time someone dares to say, 'This isn't right,' the world gets a little better. And today, we're flying in a better world." The loudspeaker rang out Aurora Air Flight 982 ready for takeoff. The plane began to taxi. Luna and Leo leaned their heads together, and Naomi closed her eyes. As the wheels lifted off the ground, she smiled. In the light of dawn, the sky opened up, vast and pure. No trace of prejudice, no more class boundaries, just the steady sound of the engine, and three people, mother and two children, flying higher, further, as if in affirmation everyone deserves to be first class. The story of white woman slaps, black twins in first class seconds later. Their mom, the airline boss, arrives is not just a tragedy in the skies, but also a mirror for society on the ground.